Have you ever trusted someone with your whole heart, only to have them shatter that trust in a way you never saw coming? I'm talking about the kind of betrayal that leaves you questioning everything you thought you knew about family, love, and loyalty. That's exactly what happened to me when I discovered that my own mom, the woman who raised me, who I thought would always have my back, took every last penny of the money I'd been saving for years for my dream vacation. Thousands of dollars, gone, just like that, leaving me stranded with nothing but anger and a broken heart. This isn't just a story about stolen cash. It's a raw, messy journey through betrayal, desperation, and the fight to reclaim not just my money, but my sense of self. From the moment I uncovered the truth to the painful steps I took to get back what was mine, I'm going to walk you through every gut-wrenching emotion, every memory that haunts me, and every hard choice I had to make. Stick with me for this long, emotional ride because I'm still wrestling with the fallout, and I need your help to figure out if I did the right thing, or if I've lost more than just money in the process. Let's dive in. My name's Ethan, and I'm 27 years old, living in the humid, sprawling city of Savannah, Georgia, where the Spanish moss hangs heavy from ancient oaks, and the air always carries a hint of salt from the nearby coast. Savannah's a place of history and charm, with its cobblestone streets in the historic district, the buzz of tourists on River Street, and the quiet beauty of squares like Forsyth Park, where I've spent countless hours just thinking about life. I grew up in a small, weathered bungalow on the edge of town, near the marshes, in a working-class neighborhood where everyone knew each other's struggles. My childhood was a mix of sticky summer days catching fireflies with friends and helping my mom with odd jobs after my dad walked out when I was 9. I've been a hustler ever since, working as a freelance photographer, capturing weddings and local events, living in a cramped studio apartment above a bakery on Broughton Street, the smell of fresh bread wafting up every morning as I grind away at building a better life. The emotional conflict tearing me apart isn't just about the money my mom took. It's the soul-crushing clash between the love and duty I've always felt for her and the searing anger of being betrayed by the one person I thought I could trust above all. The key player in this mess is my mom, Linda, a 52-year-old single mother who's worked as a diner waitress for as long as I can remember, her hands always rough from long shifts, her smile tired but warm, or at least it used to be. She raised me on her own, scraping by, teaching me resilience, but also leaning on me more than I sometimes wanted as I got older. The conflict erupted when I found out she'd taken the $4,500 I'd saved over 3 years for a dream trip to Italy, a chance to photograph the rolling hills of Tuscany, explore ancient Roman ruins, and finally take a break from the grind. But instead of support, I got deception. She used my money without a word, leaving me feeling like the foundation of our bond had crumbled, torn between rage at her betrayal and guilt for even thinking of confronting the woman who sacrificed so much for me. Memories of my life with Mom flood my mind as I sit in my tiny apartment, the distant hum of Savannah's nightlife filtering through the cracked window, each recollection a mix of warmth and pain as I try to make sense of what she did. I think back to when I was a kid, maybe 10 years old, sitting at the kitchen table in our old house while she counted tips after a late shift, her face lined with exhaustion but lighting up when she'd slip me $1 for candy, telling me we'd make it through together. I remember long walks along the Savannah riverfront, just the two of us, her pointing out cargo ships and spinning stories about far-off places, planting the seed for my wanderlust, a dream she now seemed to have crushed. I can still feel the pride in her voice when I booked my first paid photo gig at 18, her hugging me tight in our cramped living room, saying I was going places. Ironic now, as I stare at an empty savings account, wondering how the woman who inspired my dreams could steal them away. The unraveling of my trust started about 4 months ago, in the sticky heat of a Savannah summer in 2023, when I was finalizing plans for my Italy trip, buzzing with excitement I hadn't felt in years. I'd been saving religiously, stashing away every extra dime from shoots, skipping nights out, even eating ramen for weeks to pad that fund, keeping the cash in a locked box under my bed because I didn't trust banks after a bad experience with fees. I'd check it every few weeks, counting the bills, dreaming of gelato in Florence and Golden Light over the Colosseum, the total creeping up to $4,500, enough for flights, a cheap hostel, and a month of exploring. But one humid July evening, after a long day shooting a wedding out near Tybee Island, I came home, sandy and tired, to add another $200 to the stash, only to find the box pried open, completely empty, not even a note left behind. My stomach dropped like I'd been punched, my mind racing through possibilities. Burglary, a mistake, until I saw Mom's spare key on my counter, one I'd given her for emergencies, and a cold dread settled in. whispering a truth I didn't want to face. The days that followed were a haze of disbelief and simmering anger as I pieced together the betrayal, while Savannah's summer heat mirrored the fire in my chest. I didn't confront her right away. I couldn't. Instead, I tore through my apartment, double-checking every corner, hoping I'd misplaced the money, but deep down, I knew. I started noticing little things. Mom had been cagey lately, avoiding my calls, mentioning unexpected bills in passing texts but brushing off details when I'd ask. I'd walk through Chippewa Square, past the iconic Forrest Gump bench, my camera slung over my shoulder, barely seeing the beauty around me, my thoughts a loop of betrayal, wondering how she could do this after everything we'd been through. I'd sit on my fire escape at night, the distant sound of jazz from a nearby bar mixing with my frustration, asking myself if I'd been naive to trust her with access to my space, or if this was just another sacrifice she expected me to make for her, like so many times before. The emotional toll was heavier than I expected, seeping into every corner of my life in Savannah as I wrestled with the hurt while trying to figure out my next move. I couldn't focus on work. Clients noticed my distracted shots, and I botched a family portrait session in Bonaventure Cemetery, the eerie beauty of the gravestones lost on me as I fumbled with my lens, my mind on Mom's betrayal. Sleep became a stranger. I'd lie awake on my lumpy mattress, staring at the water-stained ceiling, replaying every time I'd handed her money for emergencies over the years, wondering if this was a pattern I'd been blind to. I stopped going to my usual hangouts like the Collins Quarter for coffee with friends, dodging their questions about my trip plans, ashamed to admit I'd been robbed by my own mother. Even Savannah's charm, the pastel houses, the slow drawl of locals, felt suffocating, a reminder of a life I'd been trying to escape, now further out of reach because of her. The unexpected twist came a week after I discovered the empty box, on a stormy August afternoon, when I finally mustered the courage to confront Mom at her tiny apartment near Midtown, and uncovered a truth that flipped my anger into something more complicated. I showed up unannounced, rain pelting down outside, my heart pounding as I knocked on her peeling front door, the smell of damp wood and her cheap lavender air freshener hitting me as she let me in, her face pale and avoidant. I didn't beat around the bush. I asked about the money, my voice tight, and after a long, heavy silence, she broke down, tears streaming as she admitted she'd taken it. But it wasn't for herself, not exactly. She'd used it to pay off a chunk of back rent and medical bills for a minor surgery she'd hidden from me, a procedure for a benign growth she'd had removed months earlier, too ashamed to ask for help because she knew I was saving for Italy. Standing there, the rain drumming on her leaky roof, I felt a storm of emotions, fury that she'd gone behind my back, guilt for not noticing her struggle, and a deep sadness that our relationship had come to this, a secret theft born from desperation rather than malice. In the weeks after that confrontation, I tried to navigate this new reality, building a shaky path forward in Savannah while grappling with the fractured trust between us, the late summer humidity a constant weight on my shoulders. Mom apologized over and over, promising to pay me back in small installments from her tips, but I could see the shame in her eyes every time we met at her diner for awkward coffee, her hands trembling as she poured sugar packets. I started digging into my own finances, taking on extra gigs, late-night event shoots, even some boring corporate headshots, trying to rebuild my savings, but each dollar earned felt tainted by resentment, a reminder of what I'd lost. I spent hours walking through Wormslow Historic Site, the iconic oak-lined avenue a quiet place to think, wrestling with whether I could forgive her, or if this betrayal had changed us forever. Savannah's beauty, the golden sunsets over the marsh, the clatter of horse-drawn carriages, felt distant, my heart too heavy to appreciate it as I questioned if I'd been selfish for prioritizing my dream over her silent crisis, or if she'd crossed a line no apology could erase. Reflecting on my past with Mom became an almost daily ritual as I tried to untangle my feelings, especially on long solo drives out to Skidaway Island State Park, the winding trails a backdrop to my churning thoughts. I'd think about the time she worked double shifts to buy me my first camera at 15, a beat-up Nikon she'd found secondhand, her face glowing with pride when I snapped my first photo of her in our backyard, laughing under a sagging clothesline. I remembered the nights after Dad left, when I'd hear her crying through the thin walls of our house, and I'd crawl into her bed, promising I'd never leave her alone, a kid's vow that now felt like a chain as I faced this betrayal. I'd recall the small victories, her cheering at my high school graduation in a borrowed dress, the two of us splurging on shrimp po' boys at the Grey to celebrate my first big paycheck, memories now shadowed by doubt, wondering if her sacrifices always came with an unspoken debt I was expected to pay. Sitting on park benches, watching fiddler crabs scuttle in the marsh. I asked myself if I'd failed her by not seeing her desperation, or if she'd failed me by not trusting me enough to ask for help. As time crept on, Savannah's summer fading into a cooler fall of 2023, I built a fragile plan to reclaim my money and my dream. Though the unresolved pain with Mom lingered like the morning fog over the river, I set up a strict budget, cutting every non-essential expense, even moving to a cheaper, dingier apartment on the outskirts near Thunderbolt to save on rent, the smell of fish from the nearby docks a constant reminder of my downgrade. I took Mom up on her offer to repay me, though the $50 or $100 she'd slip me every few weeks felt like salt in a wound, too slow to rebuild my Italy fund, each crumpled bill a symbol of our broken trust. I started researching cheaper travel options, maybe a shorter trip or a closer destination like Mexico, but the dream of Italy still burned in me, a stubborn flame I couldn't extinguish. I spent evenings at local spots like the Wild Dock Bar, staring out at the water, journaling my anger and guilt, trying to decide if I could ever look at Mom the same way, or if this was a scar we'd both carry forever. The grind of rebuilding my savings while carrying this emotional baggage felt like trudging through Savannah's marshes with weights on my ankles, each step forward shadowed by a past I couldn't fully reconcile. I'd spend long hours editing photos in my new, cramped space, the hum of a cheap fan my only company, replaying the moment I found the empty box, wondering if I'd overreacted or if my anger was justified. I started avoiding Mom's diner, unable to face the pity in her coworkers' eyes when I dropped by, instead meeting her in neutral places like public parks. Our conversation stilted, full of unspoken resentment on my end and desperate apologies on hers. I took on a side hustle delivering food on weekends, pedaling through Savannah's uneven streets on a borrowed bike, the extra cash a small victory, but a constant reminder of how far I'd fallen from my original plan. Late at night, scrolling through Instagram posts of Italian landscapes, I'd feel a mix of longing and bitterness, asking myself if I'd ever get there, or if this betrayal had stolen more than just money. It had stolen my ability to dream without doubt. The weight of judgment, both my own and the silent looks from Mom, didn't fade easily. Even as I pushed forward, each memory of our shared life a reminder of how fragile trust can be. I'd run into old friends at the Savannah Film Festival, their casual still planning that big trip. Questions a minefield, forcing me to mumble vague excuses while inside I burned with shame over the truth. I started skipping family events, Thanksgiving at her place, a cousin's birthday, opting for solitary walks along Tybee Beach, the crash of waves drowning out my thoughts, wondering if I'd ever shake the feeling of being let down, or if her desperation had redefined our bond in ways I couldn't undo. I even considered cutting contact for a while, just to heal, but the thought of losing her completely, after she'd been my only parent, my rock, felt like a second betrayal, one I'd inflict on myself. Sitting on the pier, watching shrimp boats bob in the distance, I wrestled with whether forgiveness was possible, or if some lines, once crossed, redraw the map of a relationship forever. After months of grinding, I finally got my money back, or at least most of it, through a mix of Mom's repayments and my own relentless hustle, a bittersweet victory that came in early December 2023, as Savannah decked itself out in holiday lights and festive cheer I couldn't quite feel. By then, I'd saved up $3,800, with Mom contributing about $1,000 over time, her small payments a slow drip of amends that didn't fully mend a rift. I booked a discounted flight to Rome for the following spring, a shorter, budget trip, cutting out the extras I'd dreamed of, but still a step toward Italy, a quiet triumph as I sat in my dim apartment, confirmation email glowing on my laptop screen. Yet, even with the money restored, the emotional cost lingered. Every time I saw Mom, dropping off a check at a neutral cafe near Abercorn Street, I felt a wall between us, her eyes searching for forgiveness I wasn't ready to give. I started therapy through a low-cost app, talking through my resentment and guilt with a counselor, each session peeling back layers of hurt, leaving me raw but clearer on why this trip mattered, even if it came at the cost of our closeness. Reflecting on the journey to reclaim my savings, I spent a lot of time wandering Savannah's quieter corners, like the Colonial Park Cemetery, the old gravestones a somber mirror to my mood as I thought about what I'd gained and lost. I'd remember the early days of saving, hiding cash after every gig, the thrill of watching the stack grow, a tangible piece of freedom in a life of hustle, now tainted by the memory of finding it gone. I thought about Mom's face when she confessed, the rain outside her window that day, her voice cracking as she explained her fear of losing her home, a fear I hadn't seen because I'd been too wrapped up in my own plans. I'd sit on benches in Monterey Square, sketching in my notebook, wondering if I'd been too hard on her, or if my anger was a necessary boundary, a way to protect myself from being hurt again. The city's holiday decorations, twinkling lights on palm trees, wreaths on historic doors, felt like a mockery of my inner turmoil, a reminder that healing wasn't as simple as getting the money back, that some debts were emotional, not financial. Now, as I sit here in my barebones apartment, a chilly December breeze slipping through the window, the distant sound of carolers on Broughton Street drifting up, I'm still wrestling with what this whole ordeal means for me and my relationship with Mom. I've got my trip to Italy booked, a shorter, stripped-down version of my dream, but still a chance to walk through ancient streets, snap photos of the Pantheon, and breathe air that isn't heavy with Savannah's humidity or history. But knowing Mom's still struggling, knowing she took my money out of desperation rather than greed, has me questioning if I've been too harsh, if I should have helped her more before it came to this, or if I'm right to hold this grudge as a shield against future hurt. I hate the thought of boarding that plane with this tension between us, of capturing postcard-perfect shots while wondering if she's okay back home. But I can't ignore the pull of this trip, the way it feels like a piece of me I need to reclaim, even if it means carrying unresolved pain across the Atlantic. So, I'm turning to you guys, because I'm at a crossroads and I could really use some outside perspective. If you were in my shoes, would you let go of the anger and fully forgive Mom? Even if it means risking being hurt again, just to rebuild that closeness before I leave for Italy? Or would you keep this boundary, prioritizing your own healing and dreams, even if it means our relationship stays strained, maybe forever? How do you balance the love and history you have with a parent against the pain of a betrayal like this, especially when their actions came from desperation, not malice? I want to believe there's a way to move forward, to chase my dream while still holding space for her in my heart. But I'm not sure how to forgive without forgetting, or if some hurts are too deep to fully heal. Drop your thoughts in the comments, because I'm honestly torn, and I'd love to know what you'd do if you were standing where I am right now, wondering if family can survive a breach of trust, or if some choices leave scars that time alone can't erase.